President Donald Trump's idea of building Mexico border wall was most probably one of the most quintessential parts of his political program that led to his presidential victory in 2016. But that's nothing new, basically. Donald Trump has definitely not discovered America in this respect, as China was there much before him. According to new scientific information, the early Chinese rulers started fortifying the northern frontier to protect the country from the raids and invasions of the various nomadic groups of the Eurasian steppe as early as from the 7th century. Just to give you some perspective, at the peak of its greatness, the Great Wall of China extended to nearly 13,000 miles across 15 different provinces of ancient China, 4 times the span of United States coast to coast. The other purposes of the Great Wall included both controls allowing the imposition of duties on goods transported along the Silk Road, regulation or encouragement of the trade, and the control of immigration and emigration, the two things that Donald Trump and his forthcoming administration are very keen on. The second most famous wall was erected for totally different reason. It was the Berlin Wall that was erected in 1961 and was existent until 1981 and was constructed by German Democratic Republic in order to prevent massive exodus and defection of the Eastern German citizens to Western Europe. As President John Fitzgerald Kennedy once said, "Freedom has many difficulties and democracy is not perfect, but we have never had to put up a wall to keep our people in." Indeed, before 1961, approximately 3.5 million Germans crossed from east to west to seek for a better life in Western Germany. Yet, even building such a massive fortification did not discourage Eastern Berliners from crossing to Western Germany, even if it meant risking your life. According to a number of calculations, around 5,000 people attempted to escape over the wall, with estimated death toll ranging from 136 to 200 casualties only around Berlin. That is why the policy of opposing to communist regime in Eastern Germany became very popular, especially among American presidents. And when President Ronald Reagan came down to Berlin in 1986 and directed his speech directly at his Soviet counterpart and said, "General Secretary Gorbachev, if you seek peace, if you seek prosperity to the Soviet Union and the Eastern Europe, if you seek liberalization, come down to this gate and open it. If you seek peace, tear down this wall. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall." So imagine my surprise when there is a new president in town and instead of tearing down the walls, he actually thinks about building a new one. So despite of the fact that American presidents have never been so open into business of building walls, here is the man who made his business career out of outsourcing US jobs abroad to different countries, including Mexico, who actually came up with the idea, very populist idea, to erect one on the southern border of USA with Mexico. Not only that, Mr. Trump wants actually Mexico to pay for that wall. And surprisingly, the Mexican government, including the Mr. President Enrique Peña Nieto, see these declarations as very hostile policy of 45th President of the USA and declares that they will actually refuse to pay one single pesos for the construction of this wall. Of course, Mr. Trump, with his political rhetoric, strikes back and says that maybe you will not pay from the very beginning, but we will charge you anyway. So if Mr. Trump decides to bring to life his political promises, the wall will be erected and it will cost American budget around 50 billion US dollars. If Mexico was about to pay for that, that would ruin its economy. But that's not the only thing. According to Obama administration calculation, every single day of US trade with Mexico generates about 1.6 billion US dollars. So imagine that Donald Trump and his new administration will actually put a barrier on this trade, how would that affect the economy of Mexico and the economy of USA? In defense of his policy, President Trump points out that by building such a wall, his administration is not trying to find a scapegoat in Latinos and blame them for all of the misfortunes of American people. But his administration is actually trying to protect its own citizens from the real threat associated with drug cartels, human trafficking, illegal immigration, and various others, smugglers and contrabanda. The 45th president's experts suggest that just few years ago the Mexico City was a murder capital of the world. That is why he's inclined to use such drastic measures. And that is why the struggling working class of the American people got him elected in the first place. Problem is that by adopting such radical measures, President Trump may face drastic repercussions. And the first of those comes down to ethics and foreign policy. By allowing himself to engage in such a blame game of picturing every single Mexican as a criminal or drug trafficker, the US president is actually undermining the US position in the world as one of the most liberal, open, tolerant, and respectful power in the world, the reputation that has been built for generations. The second reason relates to the geography and the very fact that 2,000-mile long border between Mexico and USA is very challenging geographic. Constructing this wall could be challenging because this borderland spans through deserts, mountains, and other challenging terrain, and not to mention the heat and the very fact that the average temperatures in this region in spring and summer are comparable with subtropical climate of Central Africa. Having said that, it is definitely not impossible task. Americans can definitely overcome this difficulty and construct their walls. The third difficulty, however, comes down to economy and social aspect of the situation. Despite of the fact that there is a prospect of an economic revival because the 4-year construction of such a wall would create 40,000 jobs. The problem is that such a revival would be very short-lived, and the cities in southern USA and northern Mexico that rely on relatively free movement of people and open liberal economies might struggle to adopt to the new policy of closed doors and protectionism, not to mention the fact that it is likely to create an incentive for criminality. And the fourth reason comes down to geopolitics and the very fact that every single foreign policy action has its repercussion. US hostility towards Mexico will not go unnoticed in Beijing. As a matter of fact, one can say that China has already noticed that. And the moment Donald Trump got elected, Chinese President Xi Jinping had flown to Mexico City to sign a trade agreement with Mexican President pledging to deepen both countries' economic and diplomatic ties. Naturally, the importance of US-Mexico economic and trade relations cannot be underestimated, and China may struggle to outmaneuver Washington in this respect, but China has been reaching out to a number of Latin America countries for a number of years already. And in this respect, we can recall the example of Brazil, and the very fact that despite of the fact whether this country was governed by the Lula da Silva or Dilma Rousseff or now President Michael Temer, this country has always tried to maintain a very good relationship with China, and there is a very good reason behind it. Similarly, in the case of Argentina, under President Cristina Kirchner, or now President Mauricio Marchini, who had an interesting change of heart when it comes to China. Before the election, he was very anti-Chinese, and after the election, when Chinese reached out to him, he became very open to Chinese business. But again, that's nothing new. Chinese presence in Latin America can be compared to Chinese presence in Africa. As a matter of fact, whilst the US government has engaged in a number of military interventions around the world, the Chinese policymaker decided to reach out to a number of countries around the world in a much more peaceful way. by extending their economic presence in a number of countries around the world. And by doing so, the Chinese policymaker has replaced the US government. As a matter of fact, as of October 2016, the US debt to China is of $1.1 trillion. So considering the fact that Mexican government is not willing to pay for the building of the wall on its northern border, that President Trump would have to borrow some money, and most probably he would have to reach out to Beijing or his new friend, President Vladimir Putin. But considering the fact that his predecessor had actually undermined Russian economy, that is anyway in the Chinese pocket, that might be not very viable option. So it seems that President Trump's options are quite limited. If you like this video, please subscribe to this channel. On behalf of International Relations Daily, it was Piotr Pietrzak. Thank you very much for your attention.